People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you never get that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees. They don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Hello again, and welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. My name is Randy Cook, and each week, Charisse and I sit down here and talk through some of the things that are in the news, some of the things that are affecting your money, but mostly what we want to do is talk about you and your feelings and your concerns and your wondering about this thing called retirement. So that's what we deal with here. Charisse, how are you doing today?
Doing great. School season's getting back into a full-blown flow here, and there's a lot of noise out in our world with elections and the attempt of a possible assassination, and there's a lot of things, and we've gotten a couple of calls, and people are emotional. People are really confused out there a little bit, and they're not sure what they should be doing. So we're the voice of reason here. We're going to be talking about that today because we want to address it lightly, and we want to put all politics aside, and we want to help people feel confident if they can through these episodes and these segments we go through, because we get what's going on. Nobody can predict the future, and that's for sure, Randy.
Well, we say around here, it's not about the red and the blue, it's about your green. And so we want to make sure that you're okay in all of this. And I understand the emotions of it all. And I remember, back in 2016 when Trump came up and beat Hillary Clinton, and everybody was just shocked at that. And then we all wondered, where's the market going to go? And a lot of people pulled back and said, Trump's a wild card. And then what happened? The market just soared. And so trying to time things because of stuff like this is probably not the thing you want to do. I mean, we've got some stats here about election years. In the last 80 years, there have been 20 elections. 16 have been up years in the market. So, I mean, you can't really predict it. Charisse, all you can do is sit down and say, hey, if something happens, am I covered? And that's the conversation people want to have with you.
Well, absolutely. And, this is kind of a wake-up call for everybody, because what if today, whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican or you stay in the middle, whatever you are, I want you to forget all about that. I want you to think about your retirement plan and how different shifts and different catastrophic events could really hurt you. And do you have a plan? Do you have an exit strategy? Who do you call? And will they answer, right? And so let this be, just a little baby warning, like make sure you have your financial plan intact. Make sure you know your income plan. Make sure you know if today we were talking about a funeral for a possible president in the future and the market would have crashed, what would you be living on for the next 5 to 7 years as we crawled our way all the way down this roller coaster ride and all the way back out? If that were to be something that were to happen, right? Not saying it will or it would have, but what is your plan? If you're in retirement, you have to know. Our clients are teed up. They know what they have. They know where their income's coming from. They know how much is at risk and how much is safe and what the game plan is when this kind of stuff happens.
Well, this isn't unlike any other kind of event. I mean, we've talked about market volatility in the past, and then we've talked about wars that have affected our markets and all these different things. So, I mean, look at, even if it was a stock that you own, I mean, a lot of people own Apple. Remember when Steve Jobs died, and that was a big deal. Nvidia is the the darling out there right now that's holding up the market and just soaring. What if something were to happen like that? The CEO passes away, or somebody comes up with a chip and just knocks NVIDIA off the market. And it's these things can happen. And as you and I have talked about for the last 10, 11 years, control what you can control. And the stuff out there you can't, but you can control where your money's placed and what your retirement plan is. That's the conversation really in the office right now.
Yeah, you don't want all these unknowns to derail your retirement plan or your income strategies or whatever you've got going on for those people who are not our clients. So get in the know. There's no better time than the present. Let's just prepare for the what if.
There you go. So right now, what we're actually looking at is we're on the edge of August here, and we're talking about, September might be a time when the Fed decides to start cutting rates. But don't get too excited about that right now, because they've been waiting for this for a year and a half. The people over in Europe, they cut their rates in June, and their market went down 2.5%. So it wasn't what they expected. So there are people that are talking about a market pullback. Even though we're shooting up, every time we go really up into the stratosphere, people go, and this can't last a long time. So this is Sylvia Jablonski, and she is saying, the market could pull back, but that actually is a very healthy thing.
I think we're due for a pullback. The markets are really melting up, but pullbacks are also opportunities to come into the market. You have $6 trillion sitting on the sidelines or sitting in those 5% money markets. The market's doing a lot better than that this year, 17% on SPX, over 20% on NASDAQ. So I think pullbacks are only a good thing if you have cash on the sidelines. And if you're in it for the long run, just don't look at your account for those couple of days, stay the course. I think a pullback is healthy at this stage.
All right. So maybe a market pullback is healthy for the economy and healthy for the market. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I get that. But Charisse, the people that you and I talk to every week here are in their late 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. A pullback is not healthy for their accounts.
Right.
So this is what we want to talk about here. Yes, the market pulls back, and that's healthy for them. I don't want that to happen to me. How do I prevent that?
Right. So, historically, when you look at the stock market, Randy, a pullback is healthy because typically a pullback, if it's only 5 or 10%, it typically hits a higher high later on. The question you have to ask yourself is, how long does it take to get to later on, right? So let's say the market's down, 10%, and it takes, a month. And then it takes actually 3 months to go back up, to get back to even. So you're 4 months where you're just kind of really sideways and you're back to even. Where the problem arises, Randy, like you are saying, is when we are in our retirement years and we're living off our income. And let's say you have to start selling, you sell stock to put cash in those accounts so you can get income. You need to sell that stock before the pullback happens, right? And have already in cash. So all the listeners out there, I really want you to tune into this. This is what I do every day. If there is a 4, 6 month, 8 month, 12 month pullback and you're living on your money, do you know for a fact if you have enough cash to live on? So you don't have to cash out stock during that time period, because if you do, you are doing all the things you were taught not to do for the last 30 to 40 years of your entire life. And it's called financial conventional wisdom. You never sell when the markets go down. And the only way you don't sell and you don't let the emotions get the best of you during elections or pullbacks or interest rate changes or any noise Federal Powell comes out with, what you do, you control those emotions by having the cash flow or having a safe bucket that's making 3 to 5% that you can withdraw from so that you can keep your emotional life out of the one bucket you were taught to never sell, right? And if you don't have that, or you don't know you have it, then that means somebody has not worked up a plan for you. Somebody hasn't put it in writing, hasn't bounced ideas back and forth, which is a problem in retirement. If you don't have that type of service, or you don't have that at all, Houston, you do have a problem, because you probably will make bad decisions because you can't see it. It's not clear. You're not confident, and you're bouncing around from the TV back to here, back to the TV, back to the CNBC, back to the, Fox News or CNN, wherever you watch. So stop the craziness, calm the chaos, and get control of your personal economy. Get control of your life and your retirement. And if you're thinking, That makes sense, Charisse. And just give us a call, because that's what we help people do. We help you control the emotions, work that plan out so that you don't have that chaos, because that's what you need and that's what you deserve.
Well, when you think about this, the people that are nervous about market pullbacks in retirement are people who are they're depending on market gains for their income. You know, the people who have pensions, the people who have Social Security, the people who have annuities, and the money's coming in no matter what, those people aren't nervous because they're not depending on a good stock market for a good retirement. We want to have that conversation with you. Let's not rely on the ups and the downs of the stock market for a great retirement. Let's build our income outside of that. And many of us have no idea how that works. Charisse does. It's what she does every single day. Let's sit down and build your income plan so that the paychecks continue. You know what you get now every 2 weeks. Do you know what you get in retirement? And if you don't, let's get you that number. 833-368-3680. It's 833-368-3680. Or online, you can find us at zinniawealth.com, Zinnia wealth.com. There's a gold box down in the bottom right-hand corner. It says Complimentary Retirement Consultation. Click on that, and we'll ask you a few questions. Our team will reach out to you, and we'll get a date on a calendar. Or, again, you can reach out to us, 833-368-3680. Well, we just talked about income a little bit there. There is an interesting study out there that talks about how people develop their income in retirement. 3 different ways. Let's see what categories you fall into and what Charisse recommends. That's next on Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us at zinniawealth.com, Zinnia wealth.com. Click there, and there's a lot to scroll through. On our navigation bar up at the top, there's a button that says Education. And there's a drop-down that says Useful Guides. There's a whole bunch of stuff there that you can download. If you go to our Media tab there, you can get past shows and podcasts and interviews and all sorts of things. Spend a little time there before you give Charisse a call. Learn all about what she does, and then come in. Let's talk about your retirement and how it's all going to work. And one of the things we were just talking about was building income in retirement. We're going to go in with a Social Security check. That's income. We're going to go in with probably a 401k. That's not income. How does it become income? Well, that's what we're going to talk about here. There's a professor that we've brought up before. His name is Dr. Wade Pfau. I know this is like nerd alert, but anyway.
Hey, hold on a minute. Full disclosure, I'm a nerd.
You are.
Wade Pfau is a retirement professor, and he is amazing. He debunked the 4% rule. Anytime I have questions, he will answer me back. Like he keeps those advisors on their toes. Right when you think something, you're like, but why? But why? But why? He loves answering me back. So I didn't know you're going to bring this up, but super smart guy. Some things he says I like, most things he says I like, and some things I don't. But go ahead, Randy.
All right. So he put together a little study on how people that he's worked with develop income, and he found this. 1/3 of people like living off the growth and the income of their portfolios. 1/3 of the people liked to use annuities, and 1/3 of the people had kind of a split between bonds and whatever we have here above us, kind of a hybrid of all of these different strategies. So I wanted to ask you, Charisse, when people come in and you talk to them about the options they have for building income, where do they fall?
Right. And you know what's funny? I haven't seen him publish this yet, but he's pretty spot on, actually. And, you know, if you go back 5 years ago, he wouldn't have said 1/3 of people preferred the safety of annuities because there's been big growth in annuities over the last 5 years, and especially since 2022, because now they're offering a higher profit, higher return on average based on interest rates. So now they're just like quite lovely, and people are really starting to say, hey, well, why not? So that wasn't even his billfold, because I used to question him, because 10 years ago, he'd be like, why I don't like annuities. And now he's even changed his mind of why I do like annuities. So it is funny, the big change. But right now, this is really about a pretty good big mixed bag of accurate data, because that's what I'm seeing in my office when new people come in. I will say less people have annuities when they come in. They have more of that growth and income. And I would say a quarter have them, but he's taken it from across the country when he does his data. I'm doing it right here in just Central Florida. And then the split bond hybrid strategy, I'm also starting to see a little bit more of. So I will say this much. The people who are calling into the radio show, Randy, they are the ones that are more in that growth and income portfolio, because they notice it had a lot of hiccups over the last couple of years. Some of them are just back to even. Some are not back to even from 2022 losses, and some are ahead, and they don't want to keep bouncing back and forth. So they're starting to listen about, well, why is my neighbor in some of these annuities, or why do they have some of these notes, or why are they using active management and I'm not? So now people are starting to wake up and smell the coffee that there's other things out there besides just a 60-40 portfolio or just a dividend stock portfolio. So I'll give you a great example. So I have a client, she's part of our Zinnia Platinum Club. She brought her dad in about 6 months ago, and this advisor / insurance agent did not set up years ago his annuity right, and his beneficiaries were the kids, and it should have been him, even though him and his wife were owners of these contracts. It was really weird. He just didn't know what he was doing. Nevertheless, he came to me and he said, Sharice, I've got 2 brokerage accounts and I have an IRA, and my daughter really likes you, and I want to start working with you, but I got to know what you're all about. And let me tell you all, he is 80 years old. Okay. But he doesn't act it. He doesn't look it. And he's still working, and he's got businesses he's selling. So just kind of know the storyline here. We move him into a more conservative strategy, and we did treasuries and T-bills, cash CDs in one account. One of the accounts is going to go to a small fixed annuity, and then one of the larger accounts that's in the IRA has the Apple and the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and a QQQ, a heavier picks of stock, which can have a lot larger losses. And it wasn't in our active managed portfolio where it's being actively managed monthly, which is actually going to be going to probably daily here soon. But what I want to convey here is that I sat there and I talked to him. He came in, I didn't even know he was there, and I stepped in for 20 minutes with him and his daughter, and I saw fear in his eyes. And I looked at him and I said, let me ask you a question. I can do anything you want, but I need to make sure you don't look back in the rear view mirror. So I can sell all this stuff. You've made over 50 to 100% on all these stocks up until this time. I said, if the stock market crashes and you lose 30%, how are you going to react? He's like, I'm going to be mad. I said, are you going to be mad at me or the stock market? He's like, probably both. I was like, okay. I was like, that portfolio could easily go down 50. So you and I need to duke it out right now and have a conversation. But he came in because he was so worried because of the attempted assassination and all this. He was unraveled, right? The emotions were getting to him, and he just wanted to talk and make sure he had somebody to communicate with. He was in a good place, and he made the best decisions in these accounts. So I looked at him, and I read people, I know people, I can look into your eyes, and I can see your posture. I've learned this over the years, and I just knew that I had to have this conversation with him. It would be the same conversation if my dad was alive today, I'd be having with him, because I had those conversations with him. And I said, listen, over the next 5 months or so, if the stock market zips up and it makes 15% from today, you're going to be a happy camper, right? He said, yes. And I said, what if it goes down 15%? He's like, I'm not feeling good about that. I do not want it to lose 15%. I'm like, oh boy. I said, okay, so let me ask you a question. If we sell all this stuff so that you can sleep better at night for the next 5 to 6 months till after this election, and in the safe portfolio, you only make 4 to 5 and you don't make 15, how are you going to react? He's like, well, yeah, I want to make 15, Sharice. He's like, but I don't want to lose 15. And I'm like, now we're talking about risk versus reward. So you're telling me that reward isn't worth the risk. He went, yeah, I think that is what I'm saying. And I went, okay. So we can bob and weave. I said, let's put it in my actively managed portfolio. We'll put it in a conservative portfolio. And then as you feel more confident, maybe before the election or right after, however you feel, we can move it and slowly etch back into the risky stuff. And I said, we can't time the market. We don't know what's going to happen. All I know is that if you're on vacation, you're hanging out with your kiddos, or you're selling your business, I don't want you to be stressed, because at 80 years old, you should be enjoying life and not worrying about what's on that stock market. And that is why you're working with me. And he's only been with me for a month. And I said, and over time, we're going to coach you along this process and this journey, and we're going to hold your hand. And when you need to reach out like you did today, reach out, because we want to be here and answering your questions so you don't make these emotional decisions when maybe it's just a correction, or maybe you have a gut feeling, and, so we're going to talk about it more or less. So it was an engaging conversation. I stood up, I shook his hand, and I'm like, I'm so glad that you came to us. He's like, you know what, Charisse, I trust you so much. And he's an old school from Jersey, and he was hanging on this cane, has this big metal silver eagle on it. I'm like, don't mess with this guy. But I shook his hand so hard. He was like, and I looked at him in his eyes. I'm like, I got you. He's like, I know you do. It was such a great conversation. And, we have conversations like that with people. That's what we do, because it's important.
What's interesting about that is that's a conversation that I would think that you would have with somebody who comes in who's 60, that you look at their portfolio and they have a lot of stock. They have, a lot of mix of different things, but they have a lot of risk. And then you come in and say, okay, this is that time in your life when you dial back risk. Well, here's a guy who's been riding that wave, and he's 80. And so he's still got a lot of risk. And now all of a sudden, he starts feeling uncomfortable about it. I guess there's something to be learned there, Charisse, that people have different appetites for risk, but there still needs to be that security within their portfolio that they know that if they do take a hit and they do take some losses, that the daily bills, that everything is going to be okay. I can go on vacation, and it is possible to build a portfolio like that.
And it is, and you can do it without having to get double-digit returns every year, which we have been taught for 30 to 40 years of our life. And we're really protect from double-digit losses. Let's just work on those conservative returns, because most people will not run out of money if you focus on that versus the big risk.
Well, it is interesting as well that he comes in, and the reason he comes in is he's worried about what's going on right now outside the stock market. He's worried about the election. He's worried about our country. It's getting very emotional. He is not the only one.
No.
There are a lot of people that feel exactly the same way, and then they worry about that. They worry about the country, but they also worry about their money. And if you're having that happen in your life, give us a call. Come on in. Let's talk through it. Let's talk through your concerns, and let's talk through how we can address those concerns from a financial basis. Here's our number. Here's our website, 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. Or you can find us at zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box down in the bottom right-hand corner. It says complimentary retirement consultation. When you click on that, we'll ask you to fill in a little information there, and our team will reach out to you. We'll get a date on a calendar, and we'll talk through it. Or you can schedule it right here, 833-368-3680. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we got an interesting list for you. They talk to people who are in their 70s and 80s, older retirees, and ask them if you have any regrets, not about life, but do you have any regrets about your retirement? And they came up with 5 things that we can probably learn from. And Charisse has a story that goes right along with that with one of her clients. That's coming up next on Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, it's zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. or give us a call, 833-368-3680. If it's time to talk about your retirement, let's talk through your concerns and come up with some solutions for you. Build that written plan for your retirement. All right. So I was cruising around YouTube a little bit, and I watch videos of kittens and puppies and golf, and it just makes me smile. And now and again, I'll hit on something about retirement as well. And I found this very interesting, and a lot of people commented on this. This is a guy who's up in Canada, and he talked to retirees, 70s and 80s, older people, said, what do you regret about your retirement? And they came up with 5 things. I'll go through the list here, and then we'll go through it. Number 1, I wish I would have retired earlier. Number 2, I wish I would have spent more money earlier in my retirement. Number 3, I wish I'd have paid more attention to my health. Then I wish I would have taken up a hobby. Then I wish I would have traveled more early in my retirement. I found this very interesting, Sharice, because it wasn't, gee, I wish I would have done something more about taxes, or I wish I would have done something different about Social Security. Nothing to do about planning. Everything to do about enjoying my life and enjoying my money. And there's 3 things here that say, I wish I would have retired earlier. I'd have spent more money earlier. I would have traveled earlier. People, you've talked about this a lot.
Yes.
People need to be just kind of goosed to spend their money sometimes.
Yeah. Let me just kind of, before I talk about a client that came in, let me just talk about a few of those pieces. Do you know how many people actually wished they had retired earlier in my office? I would say 90% of them, until they meet me and they're like, and we create an income plan and they see what I can retire. It's because nobody knows how to do it the way we do it. And they don't put it on paper, that they don't make it just so simple for them to see and understand. And our financial services industry is quite corrupt, in my opinion. And you're taught to work longer. You're taught when you do retire, don't spend as much. You don't run out of money. You got all these fear mongers, and you come to my office, I'm like a breath of fresh air. It's like, no, let's spend more. Oh yeah, we're going to spend double more, and we're going to do it for the first 10 years during your go-go years, and we're going to have fun doing this. And it's like, okay, who are you? And are you sure? And we do the math and we show you how for sure we are. So it's just a difference in philosophy. I wish I'd spent more money early in retirement. And I will say 75% of the people we meet that are 70 and over say that. But you know what they say? But nobody taught us. We always thought we had to save, and we didn't know how to spend, Sharice. And now we're not as healthy. Now we're coming to see you, and now we can't do all those things we used to want to do. So it's to the younger yous out there. Listen to these words. Come in, because there's a lot of regret out there. Yeah. Number 3, I wish I paid more attention to my health. The first time I heard this was from Susie Orman, and she's like, people, pay attention to your health. She was like, there's so many things I wish now I would have done 20 years ago. And I wish I would have done it. And I'm doing good, but I could be doing so much better. So pay attention now. And the moment she said that, my whole diet changed. Everything changed. I'm telling you, things changed about me because I just needed to hear it out of her mouth or something. It's not like I haven't heard it before, but it's so true. If you're 70 now and you had parents living in their 90s, you can still make changes today. Think about it. So just know that it's all what your capabilities are. And if you want to, you have to, move that train and plow through it, no matter how painful it is. And you're going to see the side, but don't give up, Number 4, I wish I would have taken up a hobby. And I'm going to tell you, Randy, I didn't know what a big deal this was until really in the middle of my business years ago. People say they'll retire. I didn't take up a hobby. Now I just don't feel smart. I'm not as quick, and I should have done something to keep that brain ticking, right? And so that is a big one. So as you're retiring or about to retire, what are you going to do as a hobby? Who are you going to volunteer with? What are the next steps? There are next steps. And maybe you're just going to travel the world, see kids, and you're going to do a lot of other things and do those crossword puzzles. That'll work too. But do not get dormant and do nothing, because that will erode your retirement. Number 5, I wish I could have traveled more early in retirement. I'm going to tell you about a story that just came into my office, because they are 67 and 70 years old. And their expenses, Like, it is amazing. Their expenses were only $20,000 a year.
A year?
A year. And the one thing that came out of their mouths, they said, Cherise, we spent $20,000 last year in travel. We feel really guilty about it, but we typically only do $10,000 a year. And I went, okay. I already knew what kind of assets they had. I'm thinking they have no idea what they could actually do here and how they can enjoy life so much better. So the next conversation was building the income plan. So I said, let's just keep the spend of $20,000 on travel. And we did a $40,000 income plan, and we did inflation adjustable income every year. And we showed only a 1% inflation on Social Security because we want to be pessimistic. And we only showed a 3% rate of return. Let me add, they had $60,000 in total Social Security coming in between both of them. Yet they only spend $40,000.
Gosh.
They were saving money every month on top of it. And they told me that, but they still feared running out of money. So I built the income plan. I said, okay, 25 years from now, if we put you in a measly 3% CD for the next 25 years of your life, which we probably will always be able to find, and you got rid of your advisors, your $2.7 million. They had $2.7 million, Randy.
And they're worried about running out of money.
Will be $5.2 million in 25 years. Now, hear me out, Randy. Here is the icing on the cake. Now, who deserves that $5.2 million in 25 years if you guys live into your 90s? Who's going to get that money? And the husband said, the two cats. I'm like, exactly. Your cats won't even be alive, and there's not enough cat meow chow that they could even buy to use all those dollars. So who is getting that money? And they're like, oh my gosh.
The richest cats on the planet.
And I said, listen, let's have some fun here. Let me show you how you're not going to run out of money, and let's figure this out. So I said, humor me. Let's take your income from $40,000 to $80,000. And they opened their eyes wide open. The wife was like, oh yeah, let's see what we got. Let's just see. I could probably spend that. And he's like, I don't even know if I could spend that. We did the income plan. We did $80,000. I didn't even do a phase 2 retirement. I just said for the next 25 years, you're getting $80,000 and we're not reducing income because you're not spending anymore. I just let it go. That $5.2 million they'd have in 25 years went to $4.6 million.
Still very rich cats.
Still very high. I said, okay, now you're at 4.6. Do you guys get what I'm putting down here? I'm putting you in a 3% CD. This is pessimistic of, I should be fired if we only make 3% over that time period. So then I said, and then the husband said, he was standing at the screen with me. We stood up there, crossing our arms, touching the screen for probably 15 minutes. And he's like, can we do 100? Let me see it at 100. I'm like, I'm seeing something change right in front of me. It was so exciting to see. This is why I love doing what I do, Randy. And I went, absolutely. And he did 100. He says, okay, where are we at in 25 years? I said, well, your 4.3 went to 3.9. He's like, that's still too much cat food. Then I said, the wife said, I couldn't even believe it because they're the most frugal people. They haven't been spending for all these years. She's like, can we see that it's at 150,000? I said, absolutely. So when we did 150,000, at 25 years later, it was 1.1 million. They backed up and they went, oh no, now that makes me nervous. Of course, it makes me nervous too. I said, so we know 150,000 is too high, but remember, this is only based on a fixed 3% return for the rest of your life. He's like, oh yeah. So if we do 4%, how's it look? Oh, now he's back up to over 2 million and change. Nevertheless, do you know what I saw? He sat down. She was already sitting down. And I saw him dreaming for the very first time. And I saw them really thinking, whoa, we can spend some money. And they are smart. Let me just tell you how smart they are. But the problem is people aren't smart with the thinking of spending their own money because they just don't know what's out there and what can happen. So when they came in on their first appointment, Mrs. like, I could use a new bed. My back has been hurting, but the bed, it was like somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000. When he sat down, I looked at you. I was like, do you think you can go buy that bed now? And I looked over at her husband and he shook his head. He's like, yes, you can. And then he said, guess what? Well, we're doing our first big cruise. We're doing an Alaskan cruise coming up. And I said, well, did you book a balcony? He went, no. And she said, he's too frugal. He'll never book a balcony. I was like, listen, now that you know your income plan, will you book that balcony? And he wasn't sure. I said, let me paint the picture. I said, I went to Spain one day and I was on a cruise for 6 days and I had a balcony. And every time we left a port and I saw the beautiful mountains and I saw the greenery and I'm watching the sun sets and I'm watching the sun rises on my balcony. I know people say that you don't hang out on your balcony, but when you have a balcony, you will have your coffee and your wine on your balcony. You'll never regret it. And I will tell you, it'll take your experience 100 times higher. And he looked at me, he went, I'm booking a balcony. I mean, he got loud and I'm like, thank goodness. And then he said, you know what? I can actually do the dude's ranch I've been wanting to do. And his wife said, yes, you can. I watched this whole process take place and it almost made me cry. I was so excited because that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to educate. Whether you have $2.7 million or $500,000, wherever you sit, this is the exact conversation we're going to have. Maybe you can't book the balcony, but if you can, we will. So just know here at Zinnia, we're helping you with this journey. We're explaining it. We're letting you unravel it and understand it as we're communicating and educating you.
Well, this is a typical couple who probably has been very frugal and they've saved hard their whole life. They've been very responsible. And then they get into retirement and they have a hard time breaking out of that mold.
And you know what he said, Randy? He said, nobody has taught me how to spend, Cherise. I don't know how to do it. I was saving. I was poor growing up that when I retired, I didn't know how to spend. And for the first time, I'm 70 years old. I'm sitting with you. You're telling me I can spend and you're going to teach me how to spend. I'm like, yes. That's a lot of people are like that, Randy.
And if you want to know how to spend, Cherise is your person, okay? Give us a call. Let's sit down. What if the meeting that you had was like that? And all of a sudden you realized the money was there and you could start to dream. Do the things that you wanted to do. It's as simple as that bed that we wanted. We can buy that. That cruise, now we can upgrade. We can do so much more than what we thought we could do. And the only reason you know that is because you had that meeting and did the math with Cherise. Let's do it together. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. Or go to zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com, and click on that gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. A free meeting to sit down, go through the nuts and bolts, and maybe do a little dreaming as well. Again, 833-368-3680. We'll take a break, come right back with more Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Cherise Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, you can find us at zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. While you're there, scroll around a little bit. There was just a ton of great resources on the website. If you go to events, you can find out our next opportunity for what we call Zinnia U. These are educational events, live events that Cherise goes out and talks through some of the things that you're probably wondering about when it comes to your retirement. What's the difference between an exchange-traded fund and a mutual fund? What do I do about taxes? What do I do about Social Security? What do I do about Medicare? All these things that you're about to encounter on a full-time basis. You need to have a little information about. We'll give that to you, and these are free. You can check those out under the event tab, and there's a lot more on our website as well. Check it out, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com, and you can also hit our podcast there. If you're hearing this show, you can't hear the whole thing. We've got this show, many other shows, podcasts, little segments of shows, lots going on there as well, all on our website. Well, I think that one of our jobs around here, Cherise, is to let people know that there are changes in retirement laws and rules because we all have to navigate those. And this was kind of interesting at how this came about. There's a court case out in Colorado that made a change to retirement rules. A man was paying his ex-wife $2,500 a month in alimony. He goes into retirement and his income is going to go down, so he felt he wanted to file to reduce his alimony payments. Mm-hmm. So apparently the laws are right now that your Social Security check does not go into your income calculation for alimony. But this new ruling has changed that. So if you're going to get, $3,000 a month for Social Security, your alimony will be charged on that number as well. So this is bringing up changes in retirement laws. And I know that, you keep in track with all of your clients meeting whenever they want to meet, or at least once a year. How many laws that you've come across that have changed that you've kind of had to shoot up a flare and say, hey, everybody, they changed the rule. We got to change our retirement plan?
There's been a bunch, but I really want to talk about the top 5.
Okay.
Okay. And one of the biggest ones is on your IRAs and 401ks. When you are forced to pull money out of those IRAs and 401ks, those are your RMDs. It used to always be 70.5. And then it went to 72 based on the Secure Act. And then the Secure Act 2.0 went to 73. And if you're born after 1960, now it's 75. When I teach my classes, I do an average of 3 classes a month. I ask, does anybody know? And I get 70, 72, 71, 73, 70. Nobody knows. That's how confusing it can be. So those laws can change. They can go back to the old laws. They can change what they've already done. And the rule of thumb is when there are law changes, sometimes there's an opportunity for you to take advantage of it. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes it hurts us. But we're in an opportunity zone right now when it comes to taxes and RMDs. And so you want to take those opportunities, and your advisors should be communicating with you, telling you what they are, like we are in our classes that we teach. And then when you come into our offices, when we sit one-on-one. So that's one of them. The second one, this was a really big one. 15 years ago, Randy, I was one of the first advisors to do Social Security seminars, and other advisors kind of poked and prodded, why are you doing that? That's so silly. And I said, because Social Security planning is so important for retirees. I feel like it's very valuable because I'm going to put hundreds of thousands of dollars back into my clients' pockets by strategizing, because back then we had things called file and suspend, restricted application, and a few other things. And we were putting hundreds of thousands of dollars in our clients' pockets. 5 years after doing this, then all the other advisors started doing it because they started catching on. But I saw it way early. And then the law changed where, I don't know, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, you can no longer do that. The people who are in it were grandfathered in. They took the opportunity. They came in. They trusted us. We did it. And now you can't do it anymore. And a lot of people come in. It's like, oh, I can't do that anymore. And the other problem is people who were coming in back then that we were planning for the future. Well, here was the thing. We were doing income plans saying, okay, you guys, they weren't quite of age to do the file and suspend between 62 and 67. So in like 2 years, we'll be able to turn this on. And based on our income plan, guess what? They weren't able to do it because they weren't grandfathered in because they weren't of age yet. So we had to readjust their plan and re-strategize. So you have to have somebody who is stepping in, making changes when political risk controls everything and we have zero control of that. So, and somebody who understands that. So that's number 2. Number 3, this one absolutely ticks me off, Randy. I'm going to tell you this. It's long-term care policies. I'm talking about companies like Genworth, John Hancock, Mass Mutual, you name those companies. I am disgusted with a lot of them, and I'm going to tell you why. Maybe I shouldn't tell people my opinion, but I'm going to. Years ago, I'll go back almost 20 years ago, we were selling long-term care policies to our clients to protect their health so that the surviving spouse didn't run out of money and we didn't spend all the money on care. And I didn't have all that software back then. Most people didn't. And the average stay in a nursing home was 1 to 3 years. And if you're going to protect your house from a fire, you better protect your wealth, right? That was the strategy. Do you know how many of those policies 15 years later have nearly doubled in premium, yet none of us knew that was going to happen or could happen? And now people said, Sharice, it's not even worth it now. I might as well cancel it. So we'll, and for some of those people, we're redoing those income plans. I'm like, you know what? If I would have known 15 years ago what I know now, guess what? We wouldn't have bought that long-term care policy because you couldn't have written a check or we could have done something different. And that is why it's so important you work with an advisor that has been in this industry long enough to have gone through a couple of crashes and stuff like that. So that's number 3. Sorry to be so passionate about it, but it ticks me off today because retirees are on a fixed income. They don't need these surprises. It's fraud. It's criminal. And it's overwhelmingly just how things happen in our world, and we can't control it again. Number 4. Estate plans. let's go back to, I want to say, when I first talked about it, maybe 17 years ago to be exact. I was doing workshops with attorneys, talking about financial planning, insurance planning, estate planning. And back then, people would say, Cherise, I want to live off my interest and I want to leave the principal to my heirs. I said, okay, so let's work this estate plan. Let's get these trusts working and we'll work from this plan. Well, guess what? The Secure Act 2.0, another political risk we had to deal with because they don't know how to manage your money that we're paying for it and your beneficiaries are paying for it. Well, guess what happens now? All those estate plans have changed. If you had $1 million and you're trying to make 5% a year and you're living off that 5% and you want to leave that $1 million, well, guess what? Your beneficiaries might get $600,000 of that $1 million, maybe, depending on the math and your income. That's not $1 million. That wasn't our plan almost 20 years ago. But because laws changed, we had to make new changes. We had to change estate plans. And today, almost 20 years later, people are saying, you know what, Cherise? I've given a lot to my kids. I'll let them deal with the tax bill. And other people are saying, no, I want to convert these IRAs to Roth because the rule that changes that you can never stretch that IRA so that your kids could benefit from it for the next 30 years of their lives and then pass it to the next generation, their grandkids for their lives. And they only had to pull, 1 or 2% out of these IRAs to live on. And now they have to cash these puppies out over 10 years. It is frustrating. I have been through a lot with my clients and a lot of political changes, and yet got to work with somebody in retirement that is a retirement planner that has walked the walk in this journey with hundreds and thousands of other retirees, because I am passionate about this because I love everybody who comes in here that wants that help. And that estate plan is a big deal. And let's talk about that almost 40% inheritance tax that can wreak havoc on your portfolio if you don't plan. I don't have enough time to talk about it, but on a one-on-one, I'd love for you to come in. But number 5, one of the biggest risks is elections. Hello, we're right around the corner. How many of you out there are nervous about this election? How many there out there have worked your butts off? You're getting ready to retire in 5 years, and you're not even sure if you can. You don't know what the taxes are going to be like because there's so much unsolved problems in America that we're trying to unite and bring back together so we can make America great, that you're not sure. You're stuck. You can't make a decision, and or you're so scared you're making bad decisions. I know who you are, and I see you guys all the time. And some of you are in cash, sitting in savings accounts, making 0.25%. I get you. I get why you're there, but you're still losing to inflation. Some of you are in high risk and you're overconfident and you've been doing this a long time and you've had some wins and you've had some losses. But now that you're getting ready to retire, you need to be extra careful because your time horizon has changed. You don't have as much time on your watch, and as good as you are, don't tell me you know how to time this market. Get some help, right? So 5 top retirement law changes that can happen in any given day. I want you all to listen to this and re-listen to this because markets could get great, the economy could grow, but it could also go the other way. So how does your plan work for you if it grows or if it doesn't?
Well, you and I doing this show for the last 11 years, we have seen things and talked about things, and then they've changed. We've alerted people to those changes. We've, kind of made the solutions along the way. Where do we go from here? I think RMD, Social Security, long-term care, estate planning, taxes, elections, the political changes. Every political landscape is different, and everybody's going to have a different idea of what taxes are going to be. And certainly we're probably in for a change on that one as well. To say nothing of Medicare and interest rates and investment changes and market changes. There's so much that changes out there during the course of you planning for retirement and in retirement for 10, 20, 25, 30 years. There's going to be a lot to keep up with, and you're going to want to have somebody who's going to walk alongside you and keep you updated and come up with the solutions that you need. Give us a call at Zinnia Wealth. We'll build that kind of plan. ZINNIAwealth.com. ZinniaWealth.com is our website. There's a gold box there you can click on. We'll ask you to put in a little information, and then we'll reach out to you, get a date on a calendar. Or you can reach out to us right now, 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. Charisse, that is all the time we have on this one. I'll give you the last word.
All right. Wow, this went by quick today, and we had a lot to unpack. We really talked about the elections and what's going to happen here come November 5th and, the future of the economy. And if you're getting ready to retire, don't let the unknowns derail your retirement plan. Listen to our podcast, Retirement Coffee Talk. Go to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. We're everywhere, iTunes, and listen to what we have to say because we mean well and we want to help as many people as we can. So thank you all for tuning in. Live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Charisse Rivers is an investment advisor representative of Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Charisse Rivers is licensed in your state, please contact their office. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Any client experiences discussed during this show are unique to that client. They are not meant to imply or suggest you will experience the same results. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Charisse Rivers, NPN Insurance License Number 8718011.